Hello and welcome to the new hotness. Welcome to my new Sunday evening, afternoon, morning. It's kind of every. We're all in different parts of the world, and also it starts at midnight. So is it night? Is it morning? The new D&D show, new Jarviskjir adventure. I know people have been missing Jarviskjir, and while I do plan to go back to the other story, this is an unrelated story, unrelated people, unrelated entirely. Or is it? Hashtag everything's connected. With new people that have never been seen on this channel before, aside from that one, who hasn't been seen on this channel before. He's been heard. Brand new people. You'll hear more about them at the end. But you can check out their Twitters and things. You should get everyone a follow because I only get the highest quality meat for my streams. So we definitely spread the love and all that stuff. How is everyone doing? How are you? How are you feeling for the first new stream? New stream.
Hyped.
We got this.
Hyped.
Yeah, hyped is.
Oh, I just realized that was out of frame. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm pumped. I'm really excited.
Oh yeah, I'm super excited. I'm stoked. I'm very stoked.
It's the first time I've actually gotten to play in a campaign in a while, so I am.
Yeah, you're like you were like me like a year ago. It was like I only dungeon master. I do nothing else. Now I play like more often than I dungeon master, and I actually started this show because it's like I just want to DM more, please. I just want to actually be in charge of some stuff as much as
Very important, you know.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes it's very important to be in charge as long as you have a safe word.
Mm-hmm. And remember, the safe word is banana. All right.
Noted.
All right.
You know I'm gonna work that into every stream somehow now, right?
No, we've Jarviskjir's already got a thing.
Oh yeah, okay. All right.
So, are you all ready? Then let's begin.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm good. Centered, you know, meditative, ready to go.
Ready to go.
Ready to go. Ready to go. Sort of.
Ready.
How much of my forehead do you want to see? Hold on. Very important.
You don't know how often I have to deal with this on Wednesdays. A combination of Neil and Scott, like they're always moving around. They're never, and I'm trying to like just make them look good. And sometimes Scott's like, I roll a charisma check, and sometimes Neil's like, I don't know what I should roll in this situation, guys. And I hate it. I hate it so much.
You've never seen how much I fidget on stream too, because you never like actually watch like my perspectives when I have a camera on either, right? So
yeah,
I'm fidgeting right now, as you.
Fidgeting is okay. I fidget too. You know. All right. So, a young man is having his head shaven clean off. Not with a straight razor, but with a ceremonial dagger. His hair is being removed clump by clump, not neatly, not in a trained way, causing cuts and nicks on his skin. He's wearing the robes of a monk, and behind him is another monk cutting and shearing hair as they stand in sand. And behind them is yet another monk holding a tattooing needle, waiting for their canvas to be prepared to tattoo symbols of great portent, of omen, and of their goal. But where we begin could not be a more different place. As opposed to the hot sands they're standing in, this story takes place in Slate Cove, a cold northern community. Other people in Jarviskjir call this place the Frozen Wastes, but up here the locals, they call it the North, quite proudly so. Slate Cove is a community of Northmen who are humans who live in the north, much hardier than the wimpy people down below in large cities who never know how to handle a battle or a boar. And these larger towns like Slate Cove, they're only really constructed when clans bind together for some reasons, and that is exactly what has occurred here. Slate Cove is a bustling, safe community of these humans banding together in a cold place. Now, it is spring, but even so, you're in the frozen north. It is snowy. The buildings mostly have stone foundations, but their wooden roofs have nice thick layers of snow that leads to a very quiet town. But the area where you guys are is not so quiet. Slate Cove sits right on the coast, right on the western coast of Jarviskjir in the northwest. And it's actually a fishing community. Mostly people here have lives of fishing and catching any beasties that can be found down in the sea. So, among the fishing boats that are quite small, there are these docks, these wooden docks. And where the cold waters sort of hit the wooden poles that are pushed down into the shore, there's this horrible, slightly brown, muddy, icy kind of mush where ice sheets kind of push and meet. The Canadians get it. And
Just describing my hometown.
This is like winter.
I wanted you to feel at home.
What is ice? What is snow? What is this? The Australian here.
The camera leads towards a tavern that sits by the waterfront, where there's sort of little fishing and tacking communities, and it's evening, so there are some people who sit on these little docks fishing. You're really not going to get much. There's some children who are trying to catch like sort of clams and mussels and things. But this little tavern is clearly where most of people come in if you're coming in from a boat or you're a sailor. It's not so much the trading taverns that you'd expect on the outskirts of town. It's a much more towny feel. In the main room of the tavern, there's some rambunctious laughter, there's drink flowing, and there's good food. But in the back room, this tavern has a back room for private events and private gatherings. It's a lot quieter. Yes, there's food. There's actually quite a nice platter of, there's some breads, there's some cheeses, there's even like some grilled prawns and things. Not a feast, but enough food to comfortably feed quite a few people. This little back room is closed off. It has very nice wood-paneled walls. Even the main wall has like this detailed, like sort of world serpent visage of a great detailed snake. And this is where usually you would walk into a tavern, you'd describe yourselves. But you've already been here each 5 minutes, awkwardly waiting for someone to gather you. And this is where you will start describing your characters as you are all sitting around a table in this private back room of the tavern, waiting to be collected. Will, would you describe your character and what you've been doing for around about the past 5 minutes?
What I've been doing for the last 5 minutes mostly has just been sitting and writing in a notebook. Wouldn't necessarily know too much. You'd see a mountain elf. If you knew what that was, you might actually think he's a wood elf at first glance, or perhaps some other kind of variation of elf, but you wouldn't necessarily be sure. He's got his hair cropped short, almost looks military. He's got scars, lots of them. Half of his ear is missing. Only one of them, but clearly been in some scrapes. He's kind of a thin, lean, muscular build. Strong, clearly strong, but not necessarily someone who you think, oh yeah, big tough guy. You'd first see him and you'd say, hey, okay, this guy's probably a dick.
Because he's an elf.
Because he's an elf, and because he's got that blank look on his face whenever you talk to him, just, you are uninteresting. Pensive. He's got a pensive look where he's delving deep into whatever he's working on, barely paying attention to the world around him, but still keenly aware. He's got kind of a dark, mottled brown and gray skin, and if you do manage to catch a glimpse of his eyes as he takes them away from the page, you'd notice they're almost a golden honey brown. He's got dark brown hair. Kind of got a little bit of a shadow going on his face, but not much.
What's he wearing?
He is wearing. That's a great question because I changed that recently.
I'm glad I just drew his face.
Yeah. He's wearing a scale mail. It's got a symbol on it that you maybe wouldn't recognize.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna leave that somewhat nondescript for now. But he is wearing it's almost a white cloak, but it's not. It's gray.
Oh, it's exactly what I described. I don't know if this was on stream. It was like it's leather tanned to be a pale color, but not like dyed to be white.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. Exactly.
It's not that neat.
No, it doesn't look good, but it's very practical and it's heavy, and it's very, very heavy for the sake of mostly for covering his armor, because he doesn't necessarily.
Because armor like this, a little weird around here.
It is, and it's out of place, and so he's covering that, maybe out of shame, but maybe more out of practicality. It's something that just he doesn't want to deal with the questions, maybe.
All right,
and yeah.
So we can have the others have a turn.
I'm sorry.
He's a writer. He likes to do this bit.
I'm sorry.
No, it's good. I love it too. You've been sitting there writing in a notebook. Maybe eating a little bit just because, it's food here.
Pecking at food, yeah.
Pecking it, yeah. So, Tobias, why don't you describe yourself and what you've been doing for around about the last 5 minutes?
Yeah. So Tobias is a human. With shaved sides of his head, kind of has some tattoos, very tribal-esque tattoos, that kind of thing. If you are picturing like basically your typical archetypal Viking-esque Northman, that's kind of his jam. Pale-ish skin, big scraggly beard, mid-20s. And what he's been doing is probably just looking at these weird people around him and thinking, man, that guy over there looks like a dick. But,
yeah.
Just like you come from out of town. He's from here. This is natural. Just chilling in the inn. And he's just, these weird people coming from out of town. It's fine, but like
you're judging them.
I don't need that judgment in my life, which is ironic because he isn't in himself judging.
Yeah,
but
yep, that's a human attitude right there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. And you're wearing sort of your traditional kind of like hunter trapper garb, aren't you?
Yeah, like basically common clothes with like some kind of like dark green like kind of cloak clasped around his neck, and just like a side bag that looks like it might have some adventuring gear in it, that kind of thing. Like what you'd expect to see someone who was like a hunter.
Yeah, exactly. You look the part as a hunter from this area. You look very you blend in here essentially. With the other bearded men in the other room and such. Someone else who doesn't look like they belong
speaking
here.
of the complete opposite of blending in.
Why don't you describe yourself, Virik?
Okay, so there you see a elf, and the main reason why you can tell that he's an elf is with his black hood that he's got on, he's got 2 holes and ears sticking out through those holes, but those ears are actually covered up with sort of metal caps so that you can't see anything all the way into the hood. Under that hood, he's got a dark red mask that looks a little bit menacing, looks a little bit sort of feline, a little bit mischief. He's got blue eyes. That's about all you can see apart from what he's wearing, though, because everything else from head to toe is completely covered. He's wearing black garbs all the way down. He's got the classics like shinobi sort of outfit, except the armor that he's wearing, if you were to look at it carefully, it looks a little flimsy, looks a little thin. I'm not sure if it might be that as protective as like it might not actually be armor. But he's just sort of sitting back, legs up. He had a good look at the people he's sitting at the table with, and then he got bored and he's starting to look around and size up all the people in the tavern.
Yeah, so there's like imagine there's like a pretty big like double door to the other room of the tavern. definitely the people in the main tavern room are kind of like looking in occasionally because the door is open. Just be like, what's going on in there? It's like when you actually hear all of you, just like some elves in town, like, because you actually know, Tobias, there's actually quite often elves in Slate Cove, and they're not appreciated. They're not hated. They're not like chased out of town. They're elves, and you're humans, and you'd like to keep it that way. How long do you think it would take for any of you to talk to each other, if at all? If at all.
I mean, my parents always told me not to talk to strangers. And, you know, I'm in this place. These guys are weird.
I would talk if I was talked to, but otherwise I'm bored.
You just sit in sort of silence. There's not even a bard in this place. There's the murmuring of sounds from the tavern back there, but it's pretty quiet in your separate room.
Very awkwardly flicking his boomerang around in his hand, just sort of like doing the flick around sort of thing.
Oh yeah.
You'll just start doing that with the boomerang.
Very much the thing is that the less interested I look, the less likely people are to talk to me. It's very much what Burro's doing right now. Just pretending they're not there. Just working away.
I feel like at some point, just feeling like it's necessary to break some of the awkwardness in this laughably silent tavern, and trying to be at least somewhat of a host, because these people are in town. Like,
yeah. You're the local.
Yeah, so I mean, at some point, just looking. I mean, that guy looks like he's busy. He's reading his book, doing his thing. That's fine. But looking towards it's Virik, right? Am I saying that properly? Yeah.
Yep.
Just be like, so, that's a cool mask you got there.
Oh, thanks. It's special. It's unique.
I see that.
So, well, I assume you're here for the same reason?
Oh yeah, I assume we're all here for the same reason. It's unless you were under the impression that this is what folks here do, is go into side rooms and sit silently in the company of strangers.
Touche. He would extend his hand and say, Raynor Wistfoot.
Yeah, and Tobias will extend his hand and say, Tobias Ostland, pleasure to be making your acquaintance.
Nice to meet you too.
For anyone who cares.
Oh, nice to meet you too.
Nice to meet you both.
Awesome. Probably again it falls into a comfortable silence for a couple more minutes. But less awkward, but still kind of awkward. Until someone actually walks into the room from outside. You hear the door open, and there's usually a snowfall, but more when the front door opens, you hear the sea, and maybe like even a spray of sea mist. When someone walks in and then very deliberately walks into your room, a slightly older human in his prime with a flat cap and not the full beard that is a bit more common in this area, a bit more trimmed. He's got a bit of a hunch, but you definitely notice a crossbow sort of dangling off his belt, slightly precariously. Which is the only thing that lead you to believe he has some fight in him, because the rest of the clothes are practical, not clean. He doesn't even have a cloak or anything. He's just got like sort of like a big enough jacket that's maybe got a little layer of snow on the shoulders now. And he kind of looks over the few of you and takes out a pipe and sort of like dusts it off a little bit and fills it and lights it and just kind of like looks at a lot of you and like, well, you're probably the people I'm waiting here for. Just the three of you? Could have sworn there was going to be a fourth. Alright. He kind of like... There's maybe a moment of quiet again. Like, see you've made best friends.
Virik would be staring at would look at him and look at the door. Like a sort of like, would you mind closing it sort of look, just sort of...
He looks back and is like, "No, we're leaving. We're not talking here. This was just a."
Oh, no, okay.
We're going to the fort.
Okay.
I'm gonna stand up, grab my bag, throw it over my shoulder. Now you kind of see that I have a shield under there, and it's just a small round shield. And I'm getting up. I'm up, and I'm following right away.
Yeah, it takes him a little bit more time to start moving compared to Barut, because he's walks with not necessarily a limp, but like stiffness, you know, and then starts to walking. When you step out of the tavern, it's late enough that there's still some light in the sky, but it's not completely dark. It's sort of a late afternoon, and starts walking you into the town of Slate Cove itself, away from the sort of dock district. He kind of talks back at you a little bit, being like, "So, you two knifers, you're not from around here, right?"
Oh, I think you might have read a little bit in the letter I sent.
I ain't read shit.
Oh, okay. Are we in an area that so we're walking towards
You're
the
walking
town?
through. You're basically walking through the town.
Oh, okay then.
Yeah.
Nope. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
No, I'm not from around here either. Surprisingly, I know.
I can tell you are. I mean, I've probably seen you around the market before. He kind of motions to Tobias, and he maybe seems familiar just because he is human, but not necessarily from around here. So.
I mean, just on that merit alone, I'm instantly more comfortable with this guy than anyone else I've met today.
And he starts walking you through the town. It's sort of a time of day when people are packing up their markets and things. Slate Cove has a river that goes through it that is bordered by wooden churches and little marketplaces, and so in some places small gardens. It's a very nice, comfortable little town inside the rocky walls that make up its outsides. And then even then, it's been growing beyond its old, the natural rock wall that goes around the town now, so there's even little settlements outside. And he starts leading you. At this point, he kind of, he does pause, just in the middle of the street, for no reason. Maybe even enough that I imagine Barut, who was first up, maybe even, like, nearly walks into him. And he turns around and be like, "So how much do you know about the Grey Fists?"
Not much.
Alright,
Very little.
You just want our coin and fame, huh? Okay, yeah, fucking...
I know the Grey Fists are awesome.
Exactly, we deserve awe.
I'm here to learn. I'm here to learn about you and about everything around here. I'm here for cultural exploration, let's say.
That's what they all say.
Is it now?
I can't count the amount of times I've had to cart recruits like you out of the castle.
I assume you mean the former recruits at that point.
He just nods and sort of like, you see like the pipe flare a little bit.
Well, I can assure you that won't be me. And I'm sure that's what they all say.
Yeah, you like interrupt him as he's about to speak. And then he just keeps walking again. He walks you towards somewhere that's sort of in the center of town. This sort of Northman community doesn't really have like a set town center. And even like the leaders of the town wouldn't live in the center either. But there is this, in sort of the middle of the town where you can see buildings all around, leads you towards a walled-off fort. Old stone walls with a fort in the middle. Don't imagine a full castle, more like a tower with a wall around it. He walks over to the portcullis that is actually open. And into a small courtyard that goes around the tower, where it's in a state of comfortable disrepair. It's not like it's actually solidifyingly damaged, but this castle does need work. It probably needs some scaffolding on it. Small fort, not even glass windows in most of the places. When you step in, he starts turning a crank that closes the portcullis. And sort of doesn't really address you as you step inside the courtyard. That's when you hear a sort of a strange noise and sort of a scrabbling, like a sort of claw on wood sort of noise, and then a sort of noise as you see two large, kind of like bald chicken creatures breaking out of cages that were up against the wall. Kind of like bald chickens. They got some like sort of scales in areas and frills that are just a bit weird looking. They look kind of monstrous. And as they run towards the closing portcullis, towards you guys, before you can even react, a great sword is flung from the top of the tower and pierces one of these creatures just through the neck and just like And the second one sort of like skids to a halt, sort of scrabbling up gravel and a little bit of snowy gravel on the base of this ground. And sort of like, as a man jumps from the top of the tower, which is 3 stories or so, not a jumpable height, onto this creature. And just jumps and like foot first, just crunches its head on the ground with a and like brain matter squishes around, and the man sort of stands up straight. You see before you a large, maybe some of you might think human. Probably Virik would. The other two would recognize him as a Borvar, which are also occasionally known as Goliath. A large humanoid with a stony skin. He's wearing, and completely bald. He's wearing a sort of leather jacket with some metal patches with fur, rich, luxurious fur around it that sort of frames his head. And Borvar coat their bodies in ritualistic tattoos that represent moments in their lives or achievements. And they're often very abstract and geometric. But the one that's in the open jacket you can see quite clearly is a dragon split in half. And then there's sort of these swirling patterns coming around, and usually this sort of pale blue that looks it looks like it belongs on the sort of greyish, stony skin that he has. And he goes, ha 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 ha, new recruits! Good. I'm glad. I hope this trouble hasn't put you off. And he like sort of wiggles the sword in the one that he speared just to make sure it's dead, and sort of picks it up and sort of swings it around, spraying a little bit of blood in the air as he does, but maybe a little bit gets on Barut, who's sort of in front of everyone else. And then he puts it back down, sort of like, so it's up against sort of the stone, and goes, I am now your lord and master. I am the guild master of the Grey Fists. The Grey Fists, the finest monster hunting organization in the world. You should be honored. No, I'm just kidding. You should all relax. Look at your faces. You're all so stressed. And then he like looks at Virik. Can't read his face. No, it's just a mask. And he sort of clears his throat a bit and be like, now, you might know me. You might not. But my name is Hurl Giant. Rosum Hurl Giant. I'm the guild master here. And we're gonna turn you young sacks of potential into monster hunters, into heroes.
I'll scoff a little bit at that. Not fully, like it wouldn't sound necessarily like a scoff. It would sound like I maybe was clearing my throat. You know, one of those, I realize I'm kind of trying to choke it back as I...
Yeah, you're like, it's like involuntary, you're like...
Virik would be like putting away the short sword, which he got out very quickly.
Yeah, when there's like
that was awesome.
Yeah, Toby's definitely pretty starry-eyed. Like, being from around here, you may have actually heard of this guy.
Yes, you would have.
So getting to, like, actually meet him in person is just like, yo, this is awesome.
Yeah.
So, Toby, like, immediately sticks out his hand to try to shake this guy's hand. He's like, as a matter of fact, I have heard of you. It is a great honor to meet you. I've been dreaming of this day my whole life, sir.
When you go to, like, shake his hand, he just puts, like, a big hand on your shoulder, like, poof. Like, we don't shake hands here. You are now brothers in arms, like, pulls you into, like, a bro hug.
Oh, that's awesome.
And he's very big. And you're like, average height for a human, so you're, like, you just have, like, a face full of, like, pectoral muscles.
Oh, that's totally fine. Like, this is actually my ideal situation. So I'm just like, yeah, of course. And I, like, reciprocate his bro hug.
Yeah.
In my weak human way.
Yeah, and he steps back and sort of like, ha, ha, I like this one already. You two, you're gonna have to prove yourselves if you want to be the favorite recruit. I'm just kidding. We don't do that here. That would be harsh. At that point, the door to the tower opens up, whereas the portcullis, a little old, the tower is still pretty old. The door is reasonably maintained. The door opens up to a elven woman. Very noticeable an elven woman. You would notice her as a high elf if you could tell the differences due to her coppery skin and long platinum blonde hair. As only an elves can, is just long and beautiful and gorgeous. And when you step closer to her, as he stops walking towards the door, you can already smell the perfumed oils in her hair that smells very elven. She's wearing what just speaks mage, sort of an ice blue sort of like robe dress that's brilliant and high quality. And whereas like the other two are wearing like sort of practical gear, she's just looking there just intimidatingly beautiful. Now, the elves would be able to notice when you step up to her, she is old for an elf, maybe 500 years old or so. You can see the lines sort of defined more on her face. A human wouldn't really be able to tell. Elves just all look young to you, but you can tell the difference. And she's got sort of a staff in her hands that's sort of like icy metal that sort of comes to a sort of arrowhead type peak with a gem in it. And she's just watching you with disdain. And when you walk up to the door, Hurl Giant's like, "You're going to love it here, and within a few weeks of training to make sure that you have your true potential, then you'll be Greyfists if you can survive the trial, that is. But I'm sure you'll all be able to." At that point, the guy behind who led you here is just like, "I wouldn't be so sure about it." And sort of follows you in. The tower opens up into a sort of a main hall that is not much. Stairways, doors to other rooms. Not a whole lot. There's a couple of weapon racks on the walls, but there's not much on there. There's actually like a bucket of crossbow bolts. That's the only thing of like note, really. They lead you in to a room that is clearly a meeting hall. Very nice table. Like in this area of the world, feasting and sort of the togetherness of like a good meal and stuff is very important. And this is clearly a northern hall with this rich table of quite a high quality, and even a couple of mugs which might have been drinked from recently. Nothing here for you guys yet. There's even some flowers in here actually. The three of them walk in, and Hurl Giant sort of motions to the elf. Maybe looks like he was gonna do a sort of like a pat on the back, but knows better. And goes, "This here is Kindley. She is the stewardess of this castle, the castle of Chasmguard. This is the base of operations of the Grey Fist, and this will be your new home. Forget your old home. You won't be going there. This will be where you live, where you train, where you report, where you love your work and the hunting of monsters. We'll be training you up in your potential. If you're masters of magic, then Kindley will unleash your true potential. If you are a man of strength, then..." he sort of motions to the guy to the side. "Zotar will be the one who trains you in your military practice." And sort of, maybe you were hoping for him to train you, because he's like big and muscular, and they point to this sort of like scrawny, slightly old human dude.
And what if we're a bit of both?
"Well then, you're going to be working double time." "But I like that. I like that. He might be my new favorite." He sort of says that to Kindley, the elven stewardess, who just, in a very elven way, there's like a very slight change in her face to show like an emotion, but like...
Is this room relatively private?
Like,
would there be open doors to other like places with people moving around?
There's no one else moving around. This
Okay.
is a very quiet place. Looking around, you think there might be one other person in this tower other than the people here right now?
So I should get this out of the way now. Right. Sorry for the lying and all of that, but it was necessary, you see, because, and he pulls off the mask showing that he's a drow. It's like, "My name's actually Virik. That's just what I do to expedite things. People don't really like me around here. You know how it goes. So hi."
Hurl Giant doesn't look surprised. He just kind of has this grin on his face still. The elf, you see her hands clutch the staff tighter. The human doesn't seem to care. He just sort of like refills the pipe weed. But what did the other two of you think of?
Yeah, when he does that, Tobias takes like a step back and he's like, "Whoa!"
Oh, don't worry. I'm not going to hurt you or anything. And we'll extend a hand. Virik, nice to meet you. Properly introductions now, I think.
Yeah.
Brute's gonna shake his hand and just say, "I know nothing of the drow. I'd like to learn more. I'll be picking your brain later."
Okay. I don't really know much, but I know some things.
They creep around corners and eat babies, from what I've been told.
That Hell Giant
What's
just
in you?
laughs very like, ha 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 ha! That one won't be eating babies. Yeah,
No,
You
that's
won't.
a new one though. Eating babies, that's weird.
when you say that, you can tell the elven woman like wants to start explaining, but sort of steps away a bit more. And then
Would I
sort of-
notice that?
Yes, because I
Yes.
imagine you're paying more attention to her. And she sort of like taps her staff on the ground and be like, I will be showing you to your quarters now. So come along with me. Very clearly eyes on Virik only. And actually walks you into the basement if you follow. When you start going, Hell Giant's just like, don't worry, I know it's cramped, but it will build a bond of togetherness. You'll be working together now. Race, culture, history. Well, no matter what, you're brothers now. And then you sort of
Cool.
led down into the basement, which is, as you'd expect, a basement of a fort in this sort of place. It's slightly damp, but not that bad. And she leads you to a room with a wooden door that is literally just a square stone room. Now, actually, none of you really have had the luxury of privacy in your lives. So the fact that you're all sharing a room together probably doesn't even faze any of you. There are actually 4 beds in this room.
As long as I get a comfy bed, I'm good.
Yeah, the wooden door is of a high quality, and it actually has a latch on the inside for locking. And there's actually a small little windowlet that isn't glass, but sort of has like a 4 or so inches. If you imagine that, like, this is the basement, but that would be where the ground floor is.
You say there's 4 beds.
Yes.
Virik immediately goes and grabs stuff from the extra bed and starts putting it on his.
When you start doing that, in Elvish, Kindle will sort of say to Barut quietly, but Virik can hear, and Tobias can hear the Elvish and probably not understand a word of it. Be like, I know that you are not from around here, but let it be known, the usurpers are not to be trusted. Oh shit. Oh shit. She did not expect that.
Oh, he knows.
The usurpers are not to be trusted. They want nothing more than to steal the sun, and even though he is but one, the magic of the Spider Queen makes them all thralls in the end. So be careful, and at least make sure he is a valuable tool in your hunting.
I'm gonna test some waters here. Wanna...
Can I just say, as that's happening, Virik is actually going to do this. He's going to do dancing lights just in front of him, so like just about here.
Yeah.
And then turn around and go, huh? What? With dancing lights floating around his face.
She
What was that?
sort of, she does the same thing, just clutches her staff a little more.
I'm
And,
gonna turn around to her and
Back to making bed.
start. I'm gonna ask her. I'm gonna say something in giant. Will she understand?
What do you say?
Does it matter if she'll understand or not?
You
All right.
say it.
Sure.
It depends whether
Sure.
she understands it.
All right, sure.
Because some other people in the
I was
room
gonna
might
say-
understand giant.
It's true. They might. So in giant, I'm just gonna say to her, I don't trust anybody, and I will never begin to trust anybody.
She nods, and she then says, in Elvish again.
Mm.
Maybe she understands enough giant, but doesn't speak enough of it, which is fair enough. Despite what our guild master leads you to believe, trust is dangerous. You are hunting monsters. Do not forget that you will have one behind you at all times. And then stretching back to common, be like, this will be your home now and for the foreseeable future. You shall make it comfortable. You can do whatever you wish for it. If you wish to go into town and buy cheap furniture, then feel free to do so. I honestly do not care. You will be living here. We will be getting you at the morning for your training. Barut, you are you summon some spells, so your training will be predominantly with me. And you will also need to meet Fireflies, our herbalist. And we will be continuing the training for a number of weeks until you are ready to begin the trials.
Excellent.
Okay.
And where will you
Sounds
be
good.
staying?
I have my own office on the upper floor of the tower.
Lovely.
And she does a sort of respectful sort of bow and walks away. You can hear her heels and her staff as she walks away.
As she goes to leave, I want to just like reach out and not necessarily grab her on the shoulder, but just go to and then like hesitate.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
wait, maybe I shouldn't do that because I saw Hurl Giant go to and then also
Yeah,
stop.
yeah.
So I was like, wait, maybe she doesn't.
It's
like
enough
being
to
touched.
get her to realize that you
Yeah,
want to
but
talk to her.
I'll get her attention for a second, and then I'm just like, I'll say to her in Elfish, if I disappear tomorrow, you know who is responsible. And I'm just kind of giving her like one of these, like two
Do you
words.
mean it as a joke or do you mean it like as a serious?
It's like a bit of column A, bit of column B.
She smiles.
Like I hope it's a joke, but it's also something that genuinely I'm afraid of happening.
Yeah, she gives sort of like the first smile you see. She's at least slightly amused by that, and is like, "Rest assured, if this happens, he will have a cold death." And then
Give her-
continues walking away.
Yeah, perfect. That's all I could ask.
So,
Well, that went better than expected. That usually goes real bad when elves are involved. You were very calm about that, brute.
Oh, Drow. I'm not from here.
Yeah, good point.
so
Is it? Interesting.
you can settle into your room. Anything you want to do before getting down to sleep? These beds are actually of an okay quality. They're comfortable enough for those of you who use beds, because as you know, elves don't sleep.
Elves don't sleep.
So,
Well,
anything you want to discuss? You don't have anything else in the room, but there is enough space in this room. It's actually quite a comfortable size with all of you combined. The only thing that's slightly uncomfortable about it is that you are sharing it, but then again, all of you have shared rooms with other people for your lives, so...
Varys gonna very openly put all of his weapons on the spare bed and just... Okay, and then he's gonna go lay in bed.
You know that elves don't need to sleep, don't you?
Yeah, but it's comfy.
He says, like...
Yeah, he's full on laying back like that.
Yeah.
Just, but I like it.
Is this a factor for Drow all around, or is this just you?
I'm pretty sure it's just me.
Interesting. Okay. And why do you think that you, rebel so much from your Drow heritage? And Bert has pulled out his notepad and notebook, and it's currently...
Well, I spent almost 150 years as being trained to be a slave, so there's that.
Wow.
And now I'm not. So yeah.
And so you'd say your rebellion is more due to the training to be a slave, or would you say it's more because you are now not doing the thing that you were originally designed to do?
Whoosh.
Well, I just do what I want to do. It's comfy, so I lie there.
Do you sleep, or do you just trance while lying down?
I trance. I rest a little bit, but I trance.
Interesting. This is very fascinating stuff. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm
Goes
gonna
back
just
to-
like keep asking questions until the...
Awkwardly all night.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
For the human who needs to sleep.
Yeah, I feel so
Yeah.
bad for him.
I'm literally just Tobias is sitting there this entire time, just contemplating what choices in life led him to be trapped in a small room with two elves who don't sleep and
Mistakes
stay
were
up
made.
all night, just talking about trancing and what
Oh, you
elves
are
do.
not exempt from this. Bert's gonna turn around and be asking you, so why your prejudice against the Drow? Tell me more about that.
Oh,
Well,
I'm interested about this one.
for one, they don't know when to stop talking so that the human among them can get some sleep. And then I'm going to turn over and try to get it.
That's fair.
Correct.
Drow, don't let...
So you do actually get enough of a sleep in the end, Tobias. It's, you tune them out after a while, and the innocent questions do continue. The next morning, your door is opened unless you latched it, but I don't imagine you did.
Oh, good God, no one locked us in here.
It latches on your side.
Okay.
I didn't lock it.
But yeah, exactly.
I was busy.
It's that older guy who's called Zotar, who opens a door and literally clashes a pan against the wall. Just a loud, berated noise. Just be like, "Wake up! Time for you to train."
Werewolf's already up and he's awake.
You just
and
start
gears
walking over.
on. He just walks out. Yeah.
Perfect.
Do I need any of that gesturing to my weapons and stuff?
Yeah.
Okay. Go and fix it up. Funny thing is, Varric might not actually need that.
No,
Like,
Varric actually
he's the
doesn't,
only
but
one.
it's sort of a catch-all training. It's not. This isn't WoW. You're not going to your monk trainer and learning from Kandarians. And
Bison's just gonna quickly get up as fast as he can and grab all his stuff and head to the door.
yeah, they lead you back out to the courtyard. It's cold in the mornings here. Everyone but Varric is pretty used to that sort of experience, and even then, Varric is getting used to it.
Yeah, it's 2 years, but still not used to it.
Yeah, exactly. It's not your nature, but you would expect it. You expect a
Yeah.
cold morning where there's usually a flurry of snow. This is the kind of town where if there's some sun, the sun might melt away the snow before more snow settles. But you're in this courtyard where it's not that fine a quality. There's sort of like patches of grass springing up between where there were flagstones and things. And there's been set up some training dummies, mostly hay. And the vague appearance of a human. Literally, let's imagine like a pole, and there's some hay around it, and it's that sort of thing. And he sort of starts martial training with the two of you. Literally seeing what you can do, and it would start with going to Barut and being like, "You just stand over there, you just watch for a bit. All right, you," and pointing to Varric, being like, "That's a goblin." He points to the human-sized training dummy. "Kill it."
Okay. He would go, "Do you want me to roll the boomerang?" I would throw the boomerang immediately. Like, without
Yeah,
even
sure,
moving.
roll for it. I didn't even think
I'd
about that,
immediately
but why
just-
not? Yeah, that hits
Okay.
a stationary training dummy.
Yeah. And then
You-
it comes back. Do I catch it? I don't catch it. It
Yeah,
flies off.
so you throw this boomerang at the training dummy. It cuts the head off the thing. Because I imagine it's bladed at the edges, right? It cuts...
I think it does bludgeoning damage. There's probably metal at the edges.
Yeah, oh, yeah, of course. It sort of knocks the head off the thing, which is even worse. It's like this splintering hay explosion. And it knocks the head off the thing, and then it falls over, and then it comes back, and you're like... And it just lodges in the stone wall behind you, and Zodar's like...
My bad.
He kind of looks at Tobias and be like, "I ain't ever seen that before." Well, you'll probably take some people by surprise. We're gonna have to work on you catching that thing when it comes back at you. But...
Yeah, this is the reason why I've got the blunt one.
He's like a very understanding nod, and then motions to Tobias and points at the other one. There were two of them. And be like, "That's a kobold. Kill it."
Tobias just pulls out his longbow and is gonna give it his best.
That's a hit.
18, nice.
Very nice.
Yeah, and I'll say this isn't just one longbow shot. This is like a bit of a show off, like a couple of shots, like head shot, body shot, head shot sort of thing, maybe. And of course, this is a bow against a training dummy. You don't destroy it, but the training dummy bounds it each time. He's like, "All right, okay. So you use a bow. You use a what is that thing?
It's a boomerang.
Use a boomerang, and
Close enough.
so that sort of thing." Hull Giant said that you also like to use your fisticuffs.
You told to me. Sorry. Yeah, I looked away. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Do you want me to?
I don't really give a shit.
Yeah,
But
fuck
we'll
it.
be
And I
training
run
you
up.
in that. I'm just trying to figure out, see, here's the way it's going to work. When you go out on jobs, you're going out as a unit. He's going to be back there firing arrows. You're going to be there throwing your boomerang. And he's going to be riding maybe. I don't know. Around about that time, were we gonna say something?
I was gonna say I can also do this, and I'm gonna run up and short sword it. Oh no! I died all through.
Quite excited to show off. You like run at it, and you do literally trip because it's a very uneven ground here. So if your foot gets scuffed up on like a root that's coming through the ground, there's no trees, but there's a root, and like you actually like end up sort of actually like poking your face in the arrows that are shafted in the dummy already. It hurts, not enough to do any damage or anything, but it's not a show off. At that time, Kindley is walking out. You didn't hear her really approaching. Probably Barut noticed because he's sort of paying attention to everything. And she says quite loudly in comments like, "Oh, then we will not have to be worrying about the usurper then. Good."
I'm just gonna stand up and very grumpily punch the thing.
Yeah. Bam! And then it goes,
Yeah. And then I walk back.
and this is when Kindley will sort of tap on like a bit of your armor with the staff, and be like, "Come with me while they are training." And outside, this continues of you showing off, and he actually gives good advice for a guy that doesn't look like he fights. You very quickly, the two of you assume he used to fight. He probably got injured enough that now he's kind of the caretaker here. But he knows what he's talking about, and when he gives Virik like good advice about no, step this way, put your legs this far apart, actually makes you not trip, and that sort of thing. And he maybe even like goes to Tobias and like makes him use a crossbow a couple of times just so you know how, because he probably only ever used a bow, you know, that sort of thing. And that's very much what the next few days are going to be for you. When you go inside with Kindley, Barut, there is, you can still hear them outside. The doors are open. You can hear maybe the occasional excited cheering of Virik. Probably mostly what you hear, and then sort of twanging and shooting and things. She goes up those stairs. Stairs are of a fine quality. They're of a fine wood. Again, old, but the inside is better taken care of than the outside because they actually spend time in. The outside you take care of more maybe if they were expecting to be sieged, but you're in the middle of a town. They're not hunting monsters that go out and hunt them. The Grey Fists operate by doing contracts, essentially. She leads you to her office, which is a very neat chamber. It has a map on the wall that is of the north. If you do exclamation mark map in chat, you'll be able to see part of that map. And she sort of has some books on the table. There's actually bookshelves in this room, little bits of decoration. She's an elf, and this room looks like it's been lived in by an elf for years. So there's trinkets, there's little artisan pieces. There she stands behind her desk, and just sort of looks at you, looks you all over, and asks, "You cast magic? How do you do this?"
I suppose the best way to put it is better at healing people and making sure that they, don't die than I am at necessarily inflicting pain, but I do know how to do that with spells as well. Not really actually all that familiar with how it works, to be honest. My upbringing didn't really allow for that. There's a little bit of training, a little bit of explanation, but it's very much a learn on the go type of thing with my people.
She gives a gentle nod to those of you who are not do not know about Jarviskjir elves. When elves are talking, it's a very long process. This is most likely a conversation in Elvish. There's a couple of minutes of pause between, sometimes even words, but sentences. The emotion she shows is just sort of a gentle nod at the end. It's a very quiet, very calm thing. Maybe occasionally interrupted by Virik being like, "Yeah, did you see that? You see that out there?" Like, she nods and says, "I do understand. I have seen people who do similar things before. I will have to see about your healing, but and she sort of turns and gets some books. quite a few books,
Mm-hmm.
old books, not necessarily all elvish books, and sort of puts them on the desk, and then goes, "There's one I am missing. This is a good time for you to meet fireflies." And she walks around. If you imagine on this floor, there's sort of a veranda. That might not be the right thing. I don't really know what that word means. A little walkway that goes around the top of the outside rooms. One of them, doors open, leads into this room that is filled with plants. There's tables and desks, and each one of them has plants in plant pots. Some of the plants are white. They've got stems, they've got leaves, they've got flowers, but everything about them is white or pale or grey. But some of them are more natural, some of them are blue. A blue fern is very common here. Barut, give me a nature check.
All right.
You're aware that this is the Blue Lady plant. This is essentially Healing Potion 101. Blue Lady is what is usually used to make herbalism healing potions. There are two ways of making healing potions, either condensing magic into liquid form or using the world and plants and reagents and things. If you're making a healing potion, Blue Lady is the way to do it. You might even have done it before. It's also can just be like gummed down into a paste that helps fix wounds. So this is probably the guy making the potions. You actually don't see the guy for a bit because there's a lot of green in the room and pale greys and things, and he's wearing green robes and pale greys. He is fireflies when he turns around to see you is a elderly half-elf at a glance. Sometimes it's hard to work out half-elves, and you haven't seen a whole lot of half-elves in your time. He's an elderly half-elf, which leads to this quite strange mixture of old and not old, because elves age very differently to humans. So he's got sort of white hair and a short white beard and sort of creases in his face. And again, a little bit of a hunch, a little bit of a slow motion, and his eyes are very old and wizened and slightly grayed out. But he doesn't look super, like his skin is still soft and supple. It's a little surreal, but you're an elf, you're not that weirded out by it. Tobias might be. And he's sort of like pottering around with things, picks up an ink pot, and then he notices that you and Kindley are walking into the room, and he goes, this is one of the new ones. He kind of walks up to you and looks you up and down, and you get the feeling that he's looking into you. Your soul, it's light. That's good. Who are you?
My name is Barut, and you are?
He shakes your hand and clasps like another hand on top of it. He's like, my name is Fireflies. I herbalist. I cast spells. I make. I create. And Kindley sort of interrupts because he's starting to like sort of ramble and stammer about a little bit of nothing. He goes, He makes healing potions. He used to be a grand adventurer. He has healed my wounds with magic more times than I care to count. He, most likely, has magic as close akin to yours. And that's when you see, you know, when there's like an old person and then their light comes back in their eyes for a moment. It's like, you're a healer. You heal. With your hands, you have healing magic. Oh.
Yes.
And he sort of like ferries you over to a slightly dying plant. He's like, heal it. Heal it.
Does this work on a plant? I don't know. I'm going to actually read my spell really quickly because that seems like a responsible thing to do in this moment.
Remember, the way I DM, logic dictates rules. So logic overrules rules. So it might say you can't heal plants, but healing magic.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I'm casting this one.
So like you whisper something in old Elvish.
I'm like almost petting the plant while whispering to it.
Yeah, this plant, this is actually, it kind of comes out the windows. It's one of the slightly grayer ones, and it was sort of withering and dying, and it's these long tendrils that go out the windows. As you start whispering to it and sort of petting it, there's even a slight bluishness that sort of comes over it for a moment as the wilting sort of reverses. And it's just like a plant that was drying out. You're just given a fresh glug of water. You come back a couple of minutes, it's like... That sort of happens. I'm not saying it flowers or anything like that, but it very clearly, very noticeably just recovers to a greater condition. He's like, yes, oh, I've always wanted an apprentice. And he kind of looks back to Kindley, and she kind of does sort of like this. Like, do you have advice? Do you think you'll be able to help him realize his potential? And he's like, yes, I think so very much. You'll have to read. There's lots of reading. And sort of starts picking up more books that are in this room, and some of them are under things, like under a plant, propping some up. And the pile of books you have to read grows and grows.
And with it, so does my smile.
And with that, why don't we take our first break? We'll be back after 5-7 minutes for more, as people get to know each other and get to maybe hate Drows less.
We will
That's
see how
the
long that
funniest
takes.
thing I've heard all day.